Hey, what's up? How's it going? I just decided to describe to you that basically all I've thought about my whole life is being an upside down cake. Since it's just basically taking everything I've been through right now and just applying it to my next life if I die. Or at least, another form of me in the present. For me to basically relieve pressure because a break requires relaxation and looking good. And, you can't do that with just one sex if you have two. And our upside down is calculations. We have aliens, which are just upside down. We have the song Aerials by System of a Down. Here's the diagram, and this is basically something we just decided on 6/22, March 18, 2018. Also at 3 o'clock or maybe 4:20, decided to have an upside down cake again. If a life upside down cake is taken, all of our lives have been based on stability, holding up things for others, and just not noticing for smartness reasons that we haven't had a world upside down cake for ourselves at all. And it's basically just the fact that you can I'm just looking at people as literal objects. And I used to play with toys and dolls and all kinds of shit when I was younger. And I realized that I had to move them and I had to have their silhouettes, face into the direction. They have to face away from each other and everything that I described. And I realized that when they're facing me and it looks like it's doing something else, it really has nothing else to do right now. In the world, I don't think any other decision could be made that I wanted to make on a worldly scale. And it's basically just something that we agreed to just now because it's already going on, is something I decided to do. And it's just the fact that, looking at Jim Carrey's hands and feet, they look like this. It also looks like Ice Cube's hands and feet. And it's just the way that that's shaped there, is really uncomfortable, for, a big toe and, a fourth toe here and then another toe here. And it seems to be a really salty and very flat compound that it feels like a overcooking of something in the stove. But it feels like something that doesn't really taste that good and it can't get any better. And it's like someone else holding a fist like this and it's kind of like a strength thing with some red. Is what it would look like on the other side of it, or holding a bow staff or something, probably poking nothing because it can't go any further. And it's just that this is our eyeballs, and basically our eyeballs are upside down this way, and it's feels like it's walking with your nose, but it feels like it's walking with like a little wobbly thing I call with a material called made of ice wampus, because it feels like a walking it's like a walking dick without a dick, because it just gets up and it goes flop, 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 and it just walks along. And just bloop, 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 and it's not really male or female, and it's kind of purple colored, it looks like. But anyway, I'm just telling you that upside down cake, this drawing I did, was me kissing my cousin on the forehead when he was 4 years old, and I thought his name was April because that's what his body said. But that's what my body was telling me that was his name. It has to do with rain, but I think that actually just his face looked exactly like that. And I mean, there's nothing else that would ever change what I was looking at. It was that face. And it upside down, you don't want anything looking like shit up there. But the point is that your energy has to go into a point. And right now, our whole lives we've been using, not using upside down orientations, but plants, insects, dogs, and other animals have upside down orientations. And it's just when you're sitting up that you're actually upside down facing the other direction where it looks like you could just float and be upside down and then just have gravity that way. Because naturally our bodies flip our eyeballs upside down regardless, but we still haven't done the upside down cake. So now we're getting towards actually doing that. And basically the point is that it's not really avoidable and there's no other room. And when there's movies and clipping and people, there's really nothing else you can do with that sexy stuff that's moving around. But it has to look better than it does, and it has to have more of a story. And that's because we're not actually learning on a global scale as a whole, and the whole world. I mean, everything needs to be able to know. Roots have, place to come from, and it's upside down to a tree. It's upside down to a person to look at a lot of things. And that's what we naturally do, and we flip it upside down. So when something's falling, it literally is falling to the sky. And we've trained ourselves to make it look like when something's fallen, that it is fallen to us, when we fall and pick up something, if all we do is drop things. So when we lose things and when we drop things, it all seems to feel like it's coming back up to us, and that's because it's falling at us, it's falling upwards, and it feels more comfortable that way. So this is just basically taking your life and just basically just flipping it upside down. And everything that you've done now will be on that side of your cake right now, and then you would flip it upside down, and then it would be on the next time. Now the point is that the next time really could not really be a full variable or anything. But if we did die, we could all come back at the same time and have a different same, opening realization. But I think if we all did it at once, then well, it's really unavoidable because there's still wrecking and rushes and people still have babies, and I think that it's just going to be something that would be just something that would happen. But if there is really a possible way for me not to die, which I wholly fucking doubt it, I think that I probably would not be able to. Here we have the native Atlantean looks over horizon as just a carrot bracing its upwards out eye look, with a point which is the tip of a carrot, if it somehow could peek out the ground as a plant as the carrot, so it could peak, that defies simpler 3D physics that obviously nature is attuned to, but definitely not me at the time. And it's just a carrot looking up over something here, you can tell. Here's our eyes upside down as not being the carrot, and if it was upside down the other way, it'd have to be upside down for the carrot to look up with this little point, which looks like a head looking out over the horizon. And that's because that's just the basics of how a carrot works, and it's also how daikon works, it's how carrots work. And it just needs to be something people notice on a cultural scale. This is one thing. But you can have one, and losing 10,000 years since 2018 to feudal rule style being created unfamiliar families for the first time. That's when people started grouping together. We're looking at artificial intelligence and how things had to spread apart, and it looks random, but it's not. It's just disaster and problems that have caused that to happen. And this is the first signs of war we've ever had. It's when we have, just a few individuals that are actually controlling an environment, and usually it's only about 10 people, and it's always mother, father, daughter, son, brothers and sisters, and, mother and father parentals, and they all just kind of come together in about 32 different combinations of something. I thought it was just 10 people, and it doesn't really go any further than that because they die over the hill in the family thing, and it just keeps rolling as a ball. So it just makes sense, and since then we have succeeded in 2018 to all be individuals without more elements and with only aesthetic detail, which seems to end at some point. That means we can't just go on and on and on about something how it has the exact same features, and it has to stop at some point. It has to call it at some point because there's nothing else to add, and there's no way to cause any other collisions. There's no way to go any further. So it would have to be kind of globalized and kind of understand how that feels. Now, I wouldn't want to lose all my information, but I think that if I did die and I could come back, that would be the only random thing that could happen based on dodging a failure, because for some reason we still have to have more failures and have to have, an actual accident in order to have something good happen. And that's because it actually happens, but it's just that we run out. There's no infinite when there's turning and eternal, so it has to stop at some point and actually cannot go any further. So, anything that could be made or anything has to go into a place. It has to be finished. When you're working on something, it has to come out and go onto something. If you have, a handful of something and it has to go somewhere, it has to look good while it does it. And that's the point, is that we're readjusting that. And now that could be something that we could focus on, since it's already a natural part of us to look upside down at things. Now, I don't know if I could really be, a guy upside down. If that was the case, if I was just going to jump right into it, maybe we'd have to go into the opposite sexes in order to really understand who we are as humans and take all the shit I have and put it into the good part, that is not being used. But if it is really just being a man, I highly doubt it, because there has to be interaction. I think that it would have to flip, because there's sleep and waking up. I just don't think that it would work. So we have this same piece here where I'm shooting an arrow up this way, and there's something like a newspaper coiled, and you can see how if you have something that's coiled and it stops at a certain point, there's an absolute zero, where it will not unfurl anymore, but it has to on the other side of it. And it has to, go in the same direction if it is turning this way in physics, and it has to be rolled down to that small point that it's on. And, piece of rolled up newspaper or anything rolled up, if you are shooting from this way, and then you shoot from this way, it's already making a difference. And if you're just shooting an arrow up in the air at like a hay bale, you can tell that it stops at a certain point to turn. So that means when I'm turning this way, so is that piece of paper. But the thing is that that's physics, and there's no other way to stop something like that from already happening, because that's all that happens around you. So having control over that does feel good, but there's really nothing you can do about it, because there's rocking left to right, forward and backwards, and it's at a silver basin looking floor. And it's like there's something that's shaped like this, which I'll show you, and it's still that same thing, but it's a blob, and then it has a little head, and it just kind of turns like this, and rocks back and forth with a fucking silver bowl right there. And bending over to lean even required a handgun, and there's no other way to have been right besides being high and playing a game I called myself Medal of Honor Allied Assault. And it was just talking about leaning in this part, and you can see how, when I leaned in that part of the game, it would hurt my shoulder to lean, because this is what I would do to lean. But I could even lean like this, but there was a certain way that it leans that actually hurts my head, because I can feel all the other choice bodies going over here and trying to break its neck, and it'll try to turn its head over to here, and the head will try to go, horizontally to the right and go like this until it pops it out of place, and then it stays like that. And I can't really do anything about it. But you hurt your skeleton if you lean the same way as an in-game character. If you're casually window shopping, you might be still walking to the location idly. So that means that, when you're trying to lean like this, your body could actually be trying to walk somewhere and get something by not going to something that wasn't there. That's like when you spit on the floor and then it becomes a product in the mall. It looks like a Hershey's, piece of chocolate, and somebody could actually just walk up to where that's coming from and get something, or something could just plop down, and you have to follow that movement in order to get to the place. That's why there's Walmarts. And you can't do anything about it. And, there were only 9 or 10 people, and this is just using math based on video games I played, because it's the only thing that makes sense, and I don't want to give you nothing to learn from all this shit that I've done. I just wouldn't want there to be shit on there. Plus, it's possible Medal of Honor Allied Assault called Moha to walk on what looks like metal tight ropes without falling, leaving also while steadily holding a pie, which looks like an unloaded silencer or pistol only used with bashing. So it's like I'm basically able to, walk over a metal railing and be able to walk with having some kind of invisible ground under me while I am walking, and it seems to be enough skill to just look good while I'm walking, and it seems to stay in place as I think my way through places. But I can't do that in physics without getting hurt. And that's because, there's 1, 2, and 3 different places I could get sniped at. If I was thinking about me getting, a headshot, places to get shot with potential headshots, not piece of cake, but just chunks of future ups. Upside down cake only, and where chunks of our bodies have never finished with the concluding but did, by not having any mode, but bash only, which I won at with over 1,000 kills at some point, and 0 deaths with an equation, because, I cheated on another game that had, super fast, and it was a different mode, which is a different mode of the game, and I realized that I got 1,000 kills, and someone said I was cheating, but I wasn't, and I wasn't using cheating because I could see through everything, because I used to play with chams, and I could see how people moved, and I could just sit there and bash every single person, and I did so good that I got kicked out of the server, but I did so fucking well that there was just no way that they could fucking see me not cheating, but I wasn't cheating, and I could tell that. When I get shot in the head in the game, my head blows up and really gets shot, and I just simulated it as real. And I just realized what to do with respawn points, and I was like, I just need a respawn point, that's a female one, so I could just take all my male shit, put it in an upside down cake, which anyone would agree with, and then, next time I would come back up as that upside down cake and be the upside down cake, so I could just kind of coast and then just collect whatever's over there that feels good. And it'd be a nice vacation. It would feel better than life's ever felt. And, after that, I'd flip back over and be back to where I'm at. And I've already experienced it. I've already felt what it felt like, and it was fucking nice. It just took the fucking edge off, and plus I could actually modify things, save things, and it just needs to be something that I could say at least. And I thought about it. So because of that, if anyone got that high of kills, they resemble a chef wearing just a chef hat with a pie in one hand, probably made of just white cream with a little whatever's in Cool Whip. Nice whip after all, except when it's leaking all oh. And it's just that, it always looks like a guy holding a chef hat, and he's got like a chef hat and he's holding it and he's running along. He's like, and he's got like a white, looks like a doctor gown on or something, but it's just some kind of thing it has. And it's just something I keep seeing, and it's just like a chef's hat with a fucking thing, and he's just running along with a pie, And he's just beast, and he's fast, It says like pasty, and he's just so fucking quick, But that's what that feels like, If I was flipped over and that comfortable, I could actually do something instead of just think about getting shot, more headshots, and how that would affect me, because I'm not getting anything when I'm, winning, and I have to be right, so where is that going to go? I can't always just end up being wrong and everything I did is trash. I don't want to throw anything away that's me, and I actually want to be it. And I want to continue from a point to be it, and I want to actually be born in it, and I feel like I was already, and I experimented with it, and I think it's good enough. So too bad all gunshots feel like future cum shots. Rum shots succumb to just more than one slice in this continuum. So put that up your rap battling asses, because it's got to go somewhere. As you can tell, here's the U sign. They have A, E, I, O, and U with these dots over them that I made. And I can see them, and I realize that the UU, or pronounced UU, or whatever it's called, it has to be pronounced right, but it's usually brown colored or brown origin and can speak as a letter. It can also walk thanks to text and visualization, facial spatial expressions, ECT, and Megazeus, and other text-based games that gave us and taught us that it could look fucking awesome. That's just something that you can't disagree with. So far, getting with someone is hectic is a crash, and if we were cars and did or didn't use road laws, because as humans we would need the same treatment since we built cars, and with an upside down cake version of our lives, we could read digitally in our body and have unlocked many ways to read what we've done using now NLP, neuro linguistic programming, social norm, and a snowman with no something features. And just some fun desire, really. A snowman eating giant upside down life cake looks good. And it's just the fact that, you have far, medium, and close. And just to be able to zoom all the way out, we realize we can have one more here, and we can have a smaller amount here. And that's globally acceptable. So you can't say no to something offered to you that you eat, since you could be any of the food items that usually admit your personality. So dysmorphic figures, we've had nowhere to put you. You need better aim. We take your aim and make it upright and accurate, but slothily, all you have, skipped a thing or two, which people who could or couldn't have an upside life can with the idea just floating around. So if the idea is just floating around in nature, it's automatically still going on. That's why Steve Irwin got killed by a stingray, because he thought about being a stingray. Didn't think about it, wasn't looking that way. He had his head deep in what else was going on, and obviously did it, And I just think that, it's pretty, unremarkable. I didn't want it, but I think that it's probably the only thing. So it just have to be there. So, you can't stop it when live action continues after the body is crippled. Trust me, I know what a crip is now, and I know that it's not something you can just try to join. You have to be crippled in order to even be in this shit. And I already felt crippled, so I couldn't join it. But that's true, and it continues after the body. So meaning, the Hindu or whatever lives would have returning characters, the exact same with data. And I just wanted to take all the data I have, because I drew a picture that was so fucking good in like 20 seconds, and I was like, look, I could put this, on anything, and just have a black canvas and do any white, and computing mechanics is going to come out of this thing. It's very valuable. And I just think that my ideas are very useful, and it's just from, using the Game Boy and playing Mario's Dreamland on math, And just using math, you can understand that spatial math is just a basically two arrows, one's facing this way, one's facing this way, and it spatially goes out in both fucking directions. In one direction. It's like one line that goes that way and that way, and it just measures how wide something is further it goes, and just where it is going to. It's like throwing something. But it's just if I threw something, it's just not really not enough. It has to continue moving, but it has to have some form of pressure still going, and it don't really need, a stopping point when you're measuring that form of spatialness. I mean, I know it has to probably hit something to be measured, but, maybe not, and, but the boundaries forward is all mathematically in Mario's Dreamland you can get on Game Boy. I think that's what it's called. But I played it, and I kept hearing it in my head, and, I realized that I went through a moment, and I realized what it put me through, and it's obvious what that moment was. I'm not stupid. So math supports we are already having the same upside down cake. Families do not be included, but types of us which are ideal do. Meaning who we appear to be really matters, and who we aren't looks, tastes, feels, sounds even worse. So type is all we see in stories. From and to points of desire. Avoiding death or going after a rest from our break. A better than my life before accuratized upside down cake. So it's just saying that basically, dysmorphic figures that have no momentum and push, gets clogged up in areas, and it's like having like nasty shit in places because there has to be somewhere for something to go to and continue going to. That's why there's an economy and movement, and it's why there's movement, and there's why there's yes and no. We'll get to that. Let me play Medal of Honor or something. Versus, alright, this is just, alright, this is versus how sexy Eddie Murphy as you in any candid emergency moment, losing all keys and wallets, saying, while wearing Speedos, getting shot and finding them. I mean, imagine him getting shot every time he fucking finds, Speedos that he has, or he's just wearing, it's supposed to be him wearing Speedos, is what it was, losing keys, and saying, and then trying to find his Speedos. I mean, I just don't think that anyone's feet would even be compatible with these fingers upside down. If Eddie Murphy looks good in every fucking part of Nutty Professor as that fat person in the suit. I think that's just disgusting. And him wearing Speedos and doing this and, white cake looks fucking disgusting. And it should have been chocolate cake, It just looks fucking disgusting. I think he's, definitely a black person. But I think that he has, definitely not white cake. What's a cake? But it'd be an upside down cake. Who gives a fuck? But it just doesn't look right. I don't want to argue with his butt. But if I'm playing Medal of Honor long enough, I can only play it for so long because I couldn't take it any longer. And, straight freckle, if you look at a building as your ass, we'll learn. Back when two enemies, Axis versus Allies, realized that not killing each other was an accidental, so we had to apply lagging mechanics to symbolize the interpersonality how someone could be friendly and let the other not die before engaging in sniper or close combat, and picks allies before based on how badass and skilled that person was. Basically, anybody who's fucking lethal, basically is lethal as fuck, and if anyone else is near them in that range, which is basically spatial beasting, you can't stop something that's fucking beasting, because it just keeps fucking going and blasting through everything, and if someone else sees that, they have to watch out for that, have to avoid that, because it's going to be right there. So when there's enemies against each other or allies, they can actually be against each other as well, and you realize that they have to be very skilled and have to just keep going and blasting through everything because it's the only awesome thing that you can do. So, going back in time, we see that our butt and our dick gets uncomfortable watching a body explode from a simulated yet real live grenade so much that it can become uncomfortable staring at just one freckle and wondering just exactly where it is going to hit a building. But if our butt and clit was a building or dick, how could you draw your own freckle before you respond? And I mean, if a bullet is the target and you have a red dot that can aim at the target and it is a freckle on a white ass with nothing on it, or just a plain regular butt with nothing on it, you know, then there is no way that you could aim that without there being jiggle inside of the building, because the building could be made of jello ass, which could just be a corner of a building, which looks more square than anything else on our bodies. So I think that respawning, might not have to do with shooting, but at some point, you have to take that crosshair off of there and see what's there, for the math that it is undressed completely with nothing. Because you have to be able to see, something besides just a freckle and then smelling cheese. And then that one dot keeps you there. That's why they have that sausage party bun with that one freckle that keeps it there. That's why Disney bothers the shit out of me and I can't stand it anymore. Because it keeps it there and they don't have an upside down cake idea that they're doing now. I just think it would be nice globally, if people just went ahead and found something and just kept beasting through and found something to fucking upside down with, And, it should be something that's beast as you. I mean, it shouldn't be something that's not doing what you're doing. If it says it's it, it has to be just as accurate as you or more accurate than you. It has to be more accurate, of course, because you have to call yourself out, right? And then it will correct it and go on its way. I think that's what it would do if you had to dissolve from a situation such as that, to form of a collision, which can't even be avoided. We have to talk to each other. So there's a respawn, boom, And here's this little thing here. It's a little fish weight, basically. And it's on a silver bowl, but it's basically a bullet's face. And it's just, a little thing that's turned up this way, and it's a little lead weight that can just, wobble this way and that way on a silver bowl surface, and you could see how that, could interact with the environment, and having to do with the respawn. That's where you go after you really got shot in here, like metaphysically, or medically, like if you got, metaphorical or whatever. I see what box of shit sign off. I mean, I can tell that, whatever this respawn shit is definitely after I get killed with the elements that be, I'm going to become the bitch of whatever the fuck it was that I was doing. But it had to be because I'd have to avoid myself from doing what I was doing. And that means that if that's what I was avoiding was that form of contact, and it's going to have a bigger blast next time, and it's the only option available, then I'd have to take it, so I wouldn't really have much else of a choice. And I think that that's what would happen if my eyeball was a bullet that was shooting you in your fucking ass, and then it finally, it doesn't have enough time to finish doing everything that it's doing, so I'd have to just focus on this for the rest of my life, and that's probably going to be it, A wobbling silver plate with my bullet hiding, as a pony not to get hit, purple and cute, but not for my little pony, but needs upside down cake life to somehow occur. And it's just something that I can't avoid because, it's just part of words. And it's just that, upside down cake life, has to do with just the fact that all that shit's fucking fun. And I just want to keep all the shit that I've talked about so far that was so fucking fun. And just all the things that I enjoy that are fun. I just like them to continue rolling downhill and get better. Instead of use the Greek thing where they have that little thing that floats under it and it looks like, there's stars and planets, but it just moves it a little bit and it doesn't do anything. It's just like water. And then it has like a little blue thing on the bottom and the little world view. And you can just see how something just sits there and it turns and it still sits there. I don't want that kind of shit. I want to actually be able to have something that actually moves with real physics, cradling. I mean, come on, where the hell is this shit going in and out? I mean, how can I just put it somewhere? There's no way to do that right now. That's why shit happened. So superfood, the plasmatic, visible, feelable, hearable, tasteable thing we all are governed by. The next to last thing to consume. So basically, this is that liquid I was talking about with a rolled up newspaper with something that could fall in it when you're turning, and it can't be avoided because when detail shrinks down to so much, actually you can't do anything else with it. It goes past a certain X and Y axis when this starts to curl down, and then it stops, but it seems to continue shrinking down in an area. But that is not possible after a certain point because it has to be completely level. And so you can't have something that, continues to a certain point and is stopped, and then you're adding little pieces of extra information that is not even on the shit. So people have all this shit in stores that basically is telling us we should have decided this because we can't do anything about it. You really can't. It's really an emergency. I mean, that's where I was born from was an emergency. I was in a hospital. I don't even think being born is that fun. I think I could just continue if it was possible, but it's just not at this time. So the liquid at the bottom of our drains of what goes down oil, water, funnels if they were us, is held but split at times following where accidents were, and looking away and dropping items for sure. Dropping eyeballs is cartoonish for sure, but only being able to pick them up while anyone is having a consensual sex seems is and is then finished is obviously waiting on the last person to do the same thing. Oh, to do something, yeah. So it's supposed to do something, because when I said something, it feels like an empty tank and someone's spilling out water and someone's mouth's watering, and I just don't see any levels, where else it could do anything else. I mean, I just don't see it mathematically, I don't see it in physics. And then we have blink, blink, and we have all these red lights, also hospital lights, let's just say police lights and cop lights, or just any kind of blink, 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 blink. If you had to blink and you had to wink, if you had to pump, every single time it does it, you have to look at it. And this is what it does. You're doing it to it. But the thing is that blinking, when you go 1, 2, 3, that one actually opens this up and fucks it. And you can't avoid it. I mean, it's right in your asses if you're really attentive. And it always is a cherry in everybody's ass, And see, sirens even beep once on left, once on right, and right to left. But on the third beep, it must penetrate if used globally in any hole, but notably the mouth and rectum. And it just feels like those two blinks cannot be avoided, because it has to be, a intermission force, and we have, police, sirens, and all this shit still going on. So you can't really shit else about it. And there's really nothing else to do about it. Our life is very digital. So just seeing someone on the horizon requires precision, especially as they pass. It seems there is no alternative to living. So whether or not we have upside down pies is relevant and is the same thing. That's all anybody's asking, and it's all we've really come up to a conclusion about. And this is just someone in the car, and if you just see a steering wheel and you just see a person, if you don't have anywhere to put your shit, it's going to hurt your head, because you're actually in a Sockenbach or talking. It's completely closed and there was nothing else in it, and somehow you found a double negative way to put your head in it and talk for a minute, you're already in double negative right now, in a double reaction chamber. And it's just because of the era of the life that we're in. We can't do anything about it. There's no other solution. That is a solution. And it's just when I saw a baby, and I was working at it was like a 7-Eleven, and I was at a gas station for like 2 or 3 months, and I saw, a black baby in there when I was listening to a song, and it was like DMX or something singing, and it was like baby, and it had that, that baby song. It was like cheep cheep or something like that. But anyway, he was just sitting there like this, and I mean, just the way that he was sitting there, he could not move, and I'm like, that dude, I am bobbling and hitting him, and it looks like I'm really punching him from double negative section. So that means that I was actually, just from me observing him, it was actually violence against him, because I couldn't even do anything about it, or it was him against me because he's a child and it's not using types, which this solves. So instead of looking at it as family, we'd have to get a little bit more out of the story about our family and go to a different form of the story, which is what we would be good at in describing ourselves, like how the rest of nature has done everything with mathematics, equations, counting our freckles, looking at what they would do, instead of having places where you have to be together in the same exact spot. And it gets really uncomfortable because everyone else didn't realize that was some kind of feud thing, and it's just not where the roots of our people come from. It's not where the math comes from. And plants do not communicate. Things do not communicate. Art does not communicate to anything. Is not true. Everything has to have something to blink back. It's got to have something, because it's just like, you just can't do anything about it. I mean, if you have something vacuum sealed, there's no way that you can fuck it up and put it in a fucking freezer. There's no way you can. So it's felt on the first one if you do not flex muscle lightly and let it bump manually, because of the right to free speech, not nationally but in speech itself's physics rule. That it must, because we already have upside down orientation, hence the Chinese calculator, and have rebirths. My goal is for continuing upside down here while we learn that we haven't configured this transition of I can't read that. Dots, disks, something, from one saved state to another saved state. And I just don't see anything else that it can do, man. I mean, I really don't. So I just think that, there's really nothing else you can do when there's saved states and things to put things, and you could just easily now Just, make your life an upside down cake and then get ready to have it again. And it just be up, facing the other direction with everything you need. It'd just be better, with improvement instead of stagnancy and other elements that only families have. And it's always something nasty and it doesn't have a self explanation. And so it gets really big and clunky. It gets gay. It gets straight. It gets all kinds of shit that just any kind of definition. Oh, gay and straight. We're just gonna keep that in there. That shit doesn't work. You have to have definition of who you are in your decisions. And that's what I learned from that game because I always want to play for the rest of my life. When you toss a dart and there's one table and someone like throws it and hits it perfect. That's one shot. But I mean, imagine every single person about something doing it. And it lands at least in the last zone that it can, thrown by observation and willpower. Enter, look at, and tell to throw. That's when you're like, someone throws something, you have to give them a reason to have thrown it, because they just threw something with a reason. So in that way, it gets so accurate it requires inaccuracy. That's because you have to have a double negative of what you're doing. When someone barely hits the board, someone, actually may have not wanted to throw it. And someone who wouldn't have thrown it at all, you can't really say that someone, using counter physics, you'll see that any entity, so every person that could be perceived would have to throw, to try to get something into a perfect area when physics and touch is applied. And you see that not using a dart could throw it. Also, barely throwing it could miss entirely more than on other item thrown at all, but would limit out at some point, and every slight effort must be counted. So basically what I was saying about that was if you even don't do anything, actually by not doing something, you would actually have to do something by not doing it, which would have an opposite reaction that wouldn't happen. That would mean that you actually would still get the bullseye by thinking about being right about something instead of not. And if you didn't, then you still would have got it somehow. It's just that kind of math that I'm talking about here and how that could be called. You have yes and no, but you can't have speech without saying, yes or no. You have to have emotion. You have to have a touch of pressure and it has to say yes or no. It has to have a from point and a to point and a past point to go forwards to. It can't have nothing to catch it with. It has to be able to go all the way forwards. If a cat, pushes you, then if it has its claws and it's going back and it scratches you when it hurts, then that is not a good thing. But if it does push forwards, and, reaches back like this, it should not go into your skin and then pull back and then hurt your skin when it pulls back with the finger. It could also look like it does that. It probably feels the same because that is, physics of how, to avoid getting hurt by a cat. Because, its fingernail can go right into your heart and fucking gouge you. And go right through you and gouge your heart out if, like, a tomato was on, like, near the outer rim of the earth. It could just get clawed by just how that feels. And then that pull there would, like, pull it back, and that piece of steak from that guy looking at NASA, would probably be understood that you can't really have a piece of steak if it was flying casually around NASA and somehow a cat could grab it and eat it. That it couldn't have been a person, so you'd have to do it, so, yes, no must be said, and so is also true if no or yes's response isn't even said, a force will still be there until it is at zero, but if yes or no was said, it would say which one would have to leave in a direction of at least physical force. That's the only way that we can conversate using physics. Protocol is the yes to upside down cake life, and time matters, and at times, if you have 300 conclusions and all say yes and all of them are the same right, then that means any of the conclusions are all the same conclusion. And so we already in physics are doing it and need somewhere to point these emotions. And it's just saying, if I was this person, what would I want my shit to be like if it was mine? That's all. And it doesn't give a fuck about anything else because it's just, we're not advanced enough to. We're not stupid enough to. That's not true. We have to act stupid in order to relate, So, organic gives us organs, and I just think that things that are organic, this doesn't really seem right. I was thinking about digital thought or some kind of other word, some other form, maybe, a different way to look at language, get rid of the English and all that. And we just need some way to have, hyperspeed, something fast, and have this to plan about, gives you something to look at, if your ass was doing something it wasn't supposed to do, it ends up in a bad location where you actually have to create it in a new way. And basically, when you're reborn in a place you don't want to be, is probably the only thing that you can do. Or if you end up in a place you don't want to be, then, well, it's just all I can decide, So gray aliens are reluctant, old ways cannot be mobilized or humanized, and it's old and crackly, and it's some 80-year-old with some Star Wars plastic junk trying to give it to you, but has $15,000 it'll give you if it tries to sell it at the auction, but has to talk to you for a long time and not smoke crack and look like some old fucking crumbly, perverted person who's just like jacking off and looking like DMX. Come on. Just to look at a fucking dolphin with a little dot on its fucking nose. What else would you do? Besides just watch something like drop from the fucking sky. Let's just eat some egg drop soup. So aliens are just gassing between our vast masks, Fiscal powders, makeups, colognes, perfumes, rubbers, and plastic makeup, and this non-pressure area where nowhere yes can't be said because it's supposed to not be there. Basically, we say out of time aliens. If this were aliens, they would be our feelings. Time to humanize them. If there is anything in there, it just fucking stinks like shit. Because I could smell Majora's Mask, and I could tell that it was a fucking mask, and it smells extremely horrible. And, all the clown and makeup, cologne, and all that shit is just for someone to take. I took one Seroquel, and I could tell how that shit tasted when, my legs stood up and I was in fucking post-mortem. And I realized that I couldn't really do much else besides just be post-mortem if I took something I didn't want, and then I have these reactions. So I realized those reactions were just that natural reaction to having an upside-down life that I already have, that I'm not even aware of, and probably would still have to use, because I'm just too human. I don't really have any choice. So, before being aliens or human form, you should have to quit playing with your useless fascinations about a post-mortem body. It's still being able to fuck, or even still being hosted there. What I'm saying is that's just math of our face, and nothing else outside of existence ever will ever not have our face in it. I've tried it with plants, I've tried it with everything. It always adds up, and it always has math and cool shit. But it just doesn't get any cooler, and it doesn't get any better. And, an alien cannot fuck correctly, and you can't just look at it. Every time I do, it's always a little plastic alien head that looks like a rubber thing. And it's just not it. It's just a fart in your ass, if anything. And it's just not good enough and not suitable enough for how many planets are out there. Might as well just make everything look human. That way we could actually communicate with it. If there was extraterrestrials, there's no other direction to go. We're completely stuck in this shit together. So white surrender flag plaques. And, there was a black dude right here and a big fat white girl with blonde hair smoking a blunt with a really fat face. And that's not her face, but her cheeks. Her eyes are closed. She's smoking a blunt, holding it like this with fucking huge fucking fingernails. And, I could tell how long we've been sitting there. I could tell I didn't put it there, but Cake did. And it was just fucking scary as hell because all of her fat was so fucking amazing. Then it wasn't amazing. It was like Guy's arms fucking trying to run away. Didn't want to be that girl because everyone was watching it on TV for the first time, and there was Snapchat that just came out a couple years ago. And I realized that Snapchat's a fart and it tastes gross. And that things go down, go up also, and that is proven. So once I looked at that and he's smoking that blunt, he was scared shitless. He's like, I'm smoking this blunt and I'm not smelling any sexy ass. What does this mean? Am I scared? I'm like, you're on TV, dude. That shit looks fucking scary as hell. And it was just the way it felt, man. It's just from all that pressure from people in society. And just imagine that huge fat cake just breaking into pieces in front of this dude. Her body is a fucking cake. And it's just so uncomfortable, man. It's just crackly and fucking nasty. And it's not upside down. It's not an upside down cake. Sorry, surrender dude, but you're stuck. If that was a shadow running away, I could fucking tell. That guy just wanted to see her eat a little bit more and destroy one more guy, but he couldn't. Huge fat girl looking like not me, blonde fucking and a skinny black dude smoking a blunt. After Snapchat, this is all he could see, but using double negative avoidance, I could not be either one of them, and to collide, just watching the two, the crushing, is that what it says? The crash being more than what was made the wobble sexy at the time made me realize this was not me. But if I was up there up close, if there was upside down cake, there'd be somewhere to have it. So it's being had. I'm not going to be a blonde fat chick at all. I was just zooming up to look at what I'm not. Hey, they would be them, so I knew that it was too much for anyone to handle. And I know no one else can handle it, so I don't like fat girls because I can't become one. I'm trying to hone in what I look like, and I don't care if it's male or female. I want to make sure that something is going to fucking hone in on this shit and come back around and be part of mine instead of just be a little piece of paper and some, chick just smelling her armpit to see if it has any cologne on it. I mean, come on, that's for fucking graves and postmortem. Yeah, people walking like this, that's postmortem. There's no reason to do that. It's uncomfortable. So there's no reason to fantasize about some shit. It's useless. It's not gonna stop an upside down cake of your life. But I just can't because, every time I've tried, I avoid it and I get cornered and raped in collisions by myself, me talking to myself, and it renders you completely in the way and feels like lick sticky notes is what everything tastes like. So that's definitely not my taste. I'm looking for me. Already found a perfect simile at strawberry. And I mean, I dated somebody named Strawberry who was big as hell, weighed like 500-600 pounds. I couldn't stand it any longer. I was up next to it, and it just kept exploding. And I'm like, what about fucking planets physics? I can't be around something this big. I gotta get the fuck away from it. It's too fucking large. But mine are wild strawberries or other. The ones deer eat so they are not fat. It's just proven that, there's wild strawberries that are smaller than big ass fat fucking strawberries.